Now it's very interesting. Freud wrote a paper in 1917 called Melancholia, Mourning and Melancholia, 1917. And he said, now we're getting now to the family background. Freud said, and he was not talking about parent-child, he said that when someone loves someone and that love is not reciprocated, the person blames themselves. He blames himself for not receiving the love from the other. And he becomes melancholic. That's an old-fashioned term for gray zone. Moody, depressed, shut down. Because he cannot grieve the fact that the person doesn't love him anymore. It's too painful to grieve the lost love. So what he says instead, there's something wrong with me, and if I could figure out what's wrong with me, then maybe that person will love it. It keeps the hope alive, but the price he pays to keep the love alive, or the hope alive, is to blame himself. So the child realizes that he is not loved. That's too difficult for a child to accept. He becomes an orphan. He becomes non-existent. This is what we call abandonment, annihilation. It's too overwhelming. So what he does instead is he blames himself. He takes on the shame, in Freud's term, to keep the love object alive. He wants to keep the love object alive. I'd rather be flawed and have perfect parents than to stay in my own integrity with myself and come to the realization that these people don't have a clue. It's just too much for a child. And that's the beginnings of shame. And our clients are shame sensitive. And so shame is always cropping up. The shame reaction. The wrong look, the wrong expression, the malattunement, the unconscious communications. And shame messages, by the way, are never given consciously, which is left brain. It's always given through the right brain. And the right brain picks up body language, facial expression, vocal tone, and context. These are the unconscious communications. These are right brain communication. Have you ever told a story to someone and you're talking animatedly and you look in their eyes and they're glazed over? And suddenly you get that drop. Have you ever told a joke and no one laughs? Happens to me all the time. At least I got a laugh there. No, but you see, the point is, these are right brain communications. So when the boy does something boyish, animated in his assertion, and he's proud, and he glances at the mother, and she looks at him like, there's a drop. Now, if it's verbal, the kid can comprehend it in the left brain, and maybe he could talk about it. But sometimes we can't put our finger on something that just happened that makes us feel lousy. So again, it's facial expression, vocal tone, body language. This is all limbic brain communication. Limbic brain is the more primitive brain. Animals communicate through the limbic brain. I have two dogs. We're sitting in the backyard. One hears a noise, it just goes like that, and the other one picks that up and goes like that. They pick up the body language. So, and then context. People, what do you mean by context? Context is something out of left field. Mommy, look at what I got. Go change your shoes. It's like out of context. Left brain says, oh, go change your shoes. But it's the timing, it's the context that is shaming. The opposite of shame is COA, curiosity, openness, acceptance, love, positive relationship with yourself as you inquire. If you do that, you're going to go here. And when you stay in grief for a while, you're automatically going to go to assertion. In other words, when the person stays here for a while, he will go here, assertion. He'll pop out of it. Oh, by the way, so again, shame is a defense against grief. Shame is a defense against grief. So Freud's mourning and melancholia. No, melancholia is here. So gray zone is a half-ass grief. It's a half a grief. It's a pseudo-grief. So you see a relationship between these two. In another way, you could see a relationship between homosexual enactment and assertion, because homosexual enactment is a false assertion. When you look at the whole diagram, you see that there are two unhealthy parts and two healthy parts. Assertion and grief are healthy. When the client is grieving and the client is in this assertion, something good is happening. So you got two healthy states, two unhealthy states, and they're controlled by the switch of shame. Flip the switch on, he goes here. Flip the switch off, and he's working here. So you always want to get the client out of shame and get him here. And this is where we go for the SBSS, a shame-based self-statement. This is how you do it. When the client goes into shame, you say to him, okay, so what are you telling yourself? What's the statement that corresponds to that feeling of deflation? The client who walks in to Lester's group who feels bad about himself because he just noticed a guy. What are you saying to yourself? I'm weird. I'm weird. Okay, now we've got your SBSS, your shame-based self-statement. I am weird. Why are you weird? Well, you know, let's feel like I'm weird because I notice a guy and I feel sexual, and that's weird. Okay, fine. Once you get the sentence, I am weird, you test it. Is it true or false? You give it the reality test, true or false. What you're doing now is you're stimulating the unconscious of the right brain, I feel deflated, to left brain cognition by coming up with the sentence, by coming up with the phrase, and by testing it with reality. So what you're saying to yourself is, you are weird because you find men attractive. Is that true or false? Now sometimes when the client looks objectively at his shame-based self-statements, he looks at it and goes, that's not true, and he dismisses it. And we have it on video where they pop out of it and they go right to the assertion. So if it's false, it'll take him to here. And you see them pop out of it. If the SBSS is true, yes, it is true, it'll take him to grief. Now, how does it take him to grief? You say, okay, by asking why. And that is the tool of psychotherapy. The tool of psychotherapy is asking why. How interesting. The APA says we mustn't ask why. The fundamental inquiry, the foundation of psychoanalysis is a why. You shouldn't ask why. I am, but why? I am. Don't ask. I am. It's anti-intellectual. But why are you attracted? Because I am drawn to him. But why are you drawn to him? Because he is masculine. But why are you drawn to someone masculine? Because I wish I had that. But why do you wish you had? Because I never had it. But why did you never have the masculine? Because of my childhood, because I was not affirmed, whatever it is, it's going to take him to grief. He's going to face the reality of what's behind his homosexuality. Homosexuality is fueled by ungrieved grief. It's a denial of what really happened. And the final stages of reparative therapy is grief work. Facing the reality of what happened to you, so that you don't have to run to the defense and to the distraction of homosexuality. You face it. One guy was saying to me, I'm not good at baseball, but why are you not good at baseball? Because no one showed me. And then you say, what would it have been like if someone did show you? What would it have been like if your father was really affirming of you, or your older brother was affirming of you? That's going to take him to grief. And then you do the first triangle. We did the triangle of containment. We'll do it again. This is so important with the work that we do. It's not an intellectual pursuit. It's a emotional pursuit. And I did this before, and this is the triangle of containment. So you got the I, the image, you got the B, the body, and then you got the T, the therapist. And you say, would you like to do body work on that? Would you like to do some body work on what it was like when you were a kid and the kids were picking on you? If he says yes, you put him in the triangle of containment. And once he's here, he doesn't go anywhere else except the image. So go to the image of what you were like when you were 9 years old and the kids were picking on you. Or what was the image of when you went to your father and he ignored you? Whatever the trauma is. And so he goes to his body about what that image was at 9 years old, being neglected or being abused or whatever. And he goes into the deeper emotion. If they're in that grief state regarding one memory, and if they're feeling it, and then there's a spontaneous movement to another memory, if that spontaneous memory deepens the grief, then you're going in the right direction. Now, if they come up with a memory that lifts them out of it too prematurely, then you say, let's go back to that earlier one. Let's go back to that. In other words, I'm going to follow whatever image that gets them as deeply as possible. They may go from one to another. It doesn't matter. Because when they're in that state, they lose sense of time and place. They will have these spontaneous associations, and you want to go with it, as long as it keeps them into that grief. One of the most difficult things that we had before we did body work is when the client comes in the gray zone. And anybody that's worked with homosexual clients know they come in with the gray zone. They come in, they sit down. What do you want to work on? I don't know. Well, how do you feel? I don't know. What do you want to? I don't know. And you try all different techniques. You try confrontation, doesn't work. You get aggravated, they're just nice and cool. You try quiet, being silent. You sit there, you look at them, they look at you, you look at them, you look at the clock, then you think about what you're going to have for lunch. Then you wish, then you have negative, then you have hostile fantasies about him. He has having hostile fantasies about you. Time goes by, nothing is accomplished. You also lose a client.